Join me as I talk with people who express their creativity in ways that can inspire the rest of us to recognize our own creativity. And if you enjoy these conversations, please like, subscribe, and share them. Hello, and welcome to Creativity Conversations. This is episode 42, and I am with Joe Kenner. Joe, glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, Nina.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So, I'm going to read you a little bit about Joe's bio. I'm so excited that you're here, Joe, because I think you've got a lot of knowledge and wisdom to share on a topic that a lot of us need to know more about. So, I'm going to read your bio and then we'll just see how things unfold from there.
Great.
Joe Kenner is president and CEO of Grayston, a nonprofit social justice enterprise that creates job opportunities and provides services that enable self-sufficiency. Joe's innovative leadership, experience, and expertise ensures Grayston's ability to deliver the best services possible. Joe joined the Grayston executive team in 2018 as the VP of Programs and Partnerships, responsible for directing Greyston workforce development and community wellness strategies and activities, which I'm looking forward to talking more about with you. Since then, Grayston has delivered millions of dollars in economic impact through job placements and has expanded employer and service provider relationships. Joe previously served as Deputy Commissioner at the Westchester County, New York Department of Social Services and has spent 14 years in corporate America working in insurance underwriting, risk management, capital markets, and sales strategy. He holds an MBA in financial management from Pace University's Lubin School of Business and is a graduate of Williams College and attended Oxford University. And P.S., Joe frequently shares his expertise on purpose-driven business and building a more inclusive economy through employment, workforce development, and social service. He's been featured in a variety of media, including CNBC, Yahoo Finance, Forbes, USA Today, and the Wall Street Journal. Wow.
I feel so good about myself after hearing that.
And well, you should.
You make it sound so good.
Well, it sounds like you've been doing quite an amazing job.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about Grayston.
Yeah, so Grayston is a social enterprise. It's actually a hybrid social enterprise here in Southwest Yonkers, New York. So right on the border of the Bronx, not too far from New York City. We were founded by an amazing individual named Bernie Glassman. And when you describe Bernie, it almost sounds like a bad joke because it's like a Jewish guy from Brooklyn, became a Zen Buddhist monk, social entrepreneur, former aeronautical engineer. But he founded this organization back in 1982. And it was on this premise, this idea, motivation of how can we create a thriving community and give people hope. He saw at this time, he and this Zen Buddhist community were in the Riverdale section of the Bronx, and just so many people that were unemployed for a variety of reasons, but they were all attached to some type of barrier to employment. So justice involvement, homeless, substance abuse, at that time, HIV/AIDS status. So that was kind of a scarlet letter for a lot of folks. And he just saw that as wrong. It was just wrong. It was an injustice that these folks that wanted to work but couldn't work for whatever reason. And he would just literally pull people off the streets to help this Zen Buddhist community make cakes in Riverdale. And that's that was the genesis for how we got to what we call open hiring now. It was just a way to bring folks into the workforce, give them a skill, give them some experience, and then hopefully they can be on a path to sustainable employment and a flourishing life. But that's what motivated Bernie. Open hiring was kind of a secondary point, but for him, it was really how do we create thriving communities? How can we give people hope? And he saw it as beginning with just one job. So that's what we've been about for these last nearly 40 years.
So was he, I didn't know it was Bernie Glassman.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Wow, that's really connecting some dots for me. So can you talk a little bit more about the bakery in particular?
Yes, so the bakery is an amazing place. Pre-COVID, I would have invited you to come see the operation for yourself, but we make now it's close to 50,000 pounds of brownies a day. So we make the brownie inclusions for Ben& and Jerry's, Unilever. You can probably see the pints of ice cream for those who are watching on YouTube. You can see the pints of ice cream behind my desk. We make the brownie inclusions that go into those ice cream flavors like chocolate fudge brownie, half baked, Justice Remix, Netflix chilled. But we also make the single serve brownies that are sold in Whole Foods, or if you just go to Greyston.org, you can order a box for yourself. But they're made by what we call the open hires, the folks that all they have to do is put their name on a list, and when the next apprentice job becomes available, they get it. No questions asked, no background checks, no interview. It's about 70 of them that work in our organization of 100 at the bakery. So it's an amazing place, and just the stories are just incredible. I mean, we
Can
just
you
want to see.
share a couple of those stories?
Yeah, actually, this coming May 18th, if I don't know when this will air, but on May 18th, we are going to be releasing a premiere of a documentary on one of our employees. Her name is Shauna, and she has such a powerful story. And there are many Shaunas in this organization, but hers in particular is just very powerful. A mother of five who at one time was contemplating putting her kids up for adoption because she just couldn't find work. There were just other challenges. But for Grayston, she was able to get employment and move up the ladder, and now she is thriving. She's a great employee, and we just love to see the growth that's happened over these last few years with her. And we're going to have a whole documentary on May 18th, so folks should go to Greyston.org and register to see it. Where she's going to talk about her story, and we're going to learn a little more about her, about Grayston, and then hear from our partners at Ben& Jerry's will be a part of a panel discussion, as well as the student-led group that put the whole documentary together. It's a group of students from Westchester County that for the community college that put the whole documentary together. So it's about 25 minutes, and then we'll have a panel discussion. But it's just a great way to learn about many Shaunas, Alvins, Dion's. There's so many people I could talk about, but that's really what it's all about. It's like seeing those lives transformed by this amazing model.
And how do people, even especially people who are needing to find a job, how do they find you? How do they know about who you are and where to sign up?
Yeah, and that's the incredible piece of this. And we don't, I mean, I'm dating myself, but we're not in the want ads, we're not in the classifieds. A lot of it's just word of mouth, but also, and we have family members, and it's not uncommon for folks, whether it's at our foundation or at the bakery, to have the mom and the dad, the son, the daughter, and at working in any one of our positions that are available. But word of mouth is one, but we also have connections to our county partners, whether it's Department of Corrections, probation, parole, social services. Those folks pass the word along. But yeah, we don't do any advertising at all in terms of the
Wow.
list. And the list, I mean, there were times when I was here, there was going to be 300, 400 folks on the list at any given
Wow.
point in time. But it takes about 6 months from the moment you put on average, from the moment you put your name on the list to the moment you get the call,
Wow.
which begins your first day on the job. When you show up for orientation, that is your first day on the job. You're earning a wage, you're going to get trained, you're going to get benefits. There's a union for the bakers. So
Wow, a union.
it's a great experience, yes.
Wow. Now, how did you, I know you worked in social services. You're laughing. What do you mean?
I think you're going to ask the career question. How did I get here? But go ahead.
Well, you tell me, how did you go from your MBA
Yeah.
and being in the financial world to being in social services and then coming to Grayston?
Mhm. The career path, it was a journey. It was circuitous. And I say to folks, it wasn't a straight line. Like you study to be a doctor or a lawyer, I know I'm going to go to medical school. I know I've got to pass these exams. And, I was really trying to just find what I wanted to do. Like, where was my passion? What made me light up? And at my goal, pretty much out of college, was just get a job, just to get a job, and
Yeah.
and then figure it out from there. And I mean, I didn't say this at the time or think this at the time, but I tell students this all the time. It's just like, you know what? let the world be your oyster, like the first 5 years, because I don't know who really knows, especially in this day and age where careers and industries are literally changing every day. So just be a thinker, be a learner, be analytical, and just be open to where the roads take you. But I didn't know. I had no clue, and I freely tell people every single job that I've had, including the one that I'm in right now, at the time of going into college, I did not know they existed. I
Yeah.
did not know what an insurance underwriter was, like risk manager was, sales strategy, pricing strategy, all these things, and social enterprise. Forget it, no clue. So just literally learning, and I was very good in all the jobs that I had, and learned a lot. There were some good experiences, some learning experiences, but I was looking for, where did I want to find my place in the career journey, and for me, it was really about transformation. And I learned that, personally too, because I'm involved in a lot of things in my church and mission activities and things like that. I met my wife on a mission trip. So it's one of those things where, I like seeing transformation, particularly in people. So if there's a passion, that makes me light up. You can't put a price tag on somebody completely turning their life around and just like their whole family changing and the whole community changing. That's just amazing. So I learned that throughout life, and that's what makes this job. And I tell people my first job here, which was the VP of Programs and Partnerships, and then my job as president and CEO, I could have written those job descriptions because it was just, they were perfect. It suited me. So, that's why, this is just an incredible job for me. And I love it. I love it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are a lot of people that don't know what it's like behind the scenes for someone who is working within purpose-driven businesses, for one, and then two, social justice, social
Yeah.
equity. Can you
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about that and where you see the challenges and the opportunities for creativity, since that's our general topic today?
Yeah, there's probably some myths too about if the purpose-driven companies and the mission-minded companies, like somehow we're perfect, because we're out trying to solve a problem, and we're not. And I would never, and myself and this organization included, we are perfecting, but we're not perfect in by any stretch of the imagination. We're run by humans, so as long as humans are in charge, you're going to make some mistakes here and there, and you're going to have some learnings here and there. But the beauty of it, as a benefit corporation, as a certified B corporation, we do have a different focus. So as a B corporation, benefit corporation, and we were New York State's first benefit corporation, by the way,
Ah,
we
great.
have a focus on the triple bottom line. So obviously there's a focus on finance. We have to be successful so we can continue to employ people and make great products. But there's also this stakeholder focus as well. So the environmental, governance, transparency, social aspects of it. And that's the part, it's a challenge. And it's work. It's like marriage. It's like anything else. It's work to do these things. It's work to bring and have a totally blind policy when it comes to employment, and have folks come in that have other challenges, that have things outside of the demands of the job that are competing for their attention, competing for their sanity, that we as an organization want to help solve. So that's a conscious decision that we've made, is like, we want you to be successful in the job, but I understand you can't be successful, you can't bring your full self to work if you're sleeping in your car, or if you're dealing with domestic violence, or you're worried about getting evicted, or your kid has an issue, whether it's special needs or whatever, and you don't even know how to take care of it, or like simple things. And I fall into this category, dealing with childcare issues. Both my wife and I work in a COVID environment. That is a challenge. So how do you worry about that and work and do all these things? So that's hard. And dealing with folks, many folks may not have had any experience in an environment where they have to deal with conflict, where they have to deal with taking instructions from a supervisor, or dealing with problem solving issues in an environment that's new. And everybody has a different way of reacting to stress, and you have to be skilled at managing through that conflict resolution and those challenges. It's not an easy job. And layer on that this is manufacturing. I know we're called Greyston Bakery, and people think bakery and they think like their little corner bakery where, a nice guy baking bread in the background. No, it's manufacturing. 12-hour shifts. You're lifting 50-pound bags of sugar and flour, standing all day. It's hot. It's manufacturing. It is as, blue collar, and it is as you can get. It's a tough job, but it can be rewarding. You'll learn a lot, and you'll be financially rewarded as well. So that's the things that people may not understand. It's a great story. Like I talked about Shauna and how it changed her life, but don't think that, Shauna or any one number of us don't have other issues that we're dealing with, or the supervisors, the stress that they have in managing a team of folks. So it's a nice story, and we're all about social justice, no doubt about that. We're all about seeing people transform their lives, no doubt about that, but it is work. And we do have our challenges, and I never want to sugarcoat how, that this is easy by any stretch of the imagination, because like I said, we're perfecting, but far from perfect.
I would think that it would be especially challenging for everyone really involved, for someone who has not had a regular employment, who's having all of the challenges that you've talked about with domestic violence or where they live, that to be a supervisor in that context and show people what it means to be part of a team and to be showing up consistently and being able to manage their emotions it takes a lot of skill to be able to do that, especially for people who are not used to that kind of background, that kind of environment.
Absolutely. Yeah, and some folks, if you come from like a Colgate or Kraft, where you're still working with that same type of a team, um, the distinction for us is it's open hiring. So you may be in the past, you may have, or your other job, you may have worked with a group of folks. They went to college, or this is what they wanted to do when they started their jobs. Here, a lot of our folks may not have had any background working, or they're just trying to earn money to take care of themselves. So it takes another level of understanding, another level of compassion, which is one of our core values,
Yeah.
in terms of understanding folks' situation and being able to manage through that. Obviously, it requires training. We're actually bringing on a team to deal with training so that all of our folks have the proper support from a professional development standpoint. But again, that's part of the job that makes us a little different. So you may have had manufacturing experience, but you haven't had manufacturing and open hiring experience. And that's the key distinction there.
Talk a little bit more about open hiring and what that's like
Mhm.
for the organization as well as for the people coming in.
Yeah. So for us, I mean, and again, we're learning about this. About 5 or 6 years ago, we partnered with Westchester Jewish Community Services, WJCS. It's a large mental health service provider here in the county. We partnered with them to have someone be on site at our bakery. And actually, this person supports both the bakery and our foundation clients. But the technical term is care coordinator or social worker, but we call her an employment pathmaker. So she's dealing with what I like to call the non-traditional HR issues. So all the things that I just talked about, helping folks deal with eviction prevention. Maybe some folks need to take some time off to deal with a substance issue, helping them with childcare issues, child support issues, transportation, whatever those other issues are, again, that keep folks from being successful, both professionally, because we still have to bake brownies every day, but also personally, because that impacts how you show up, if you show up. Because that was one of the triggers. Just a lot of people just, stop coming to work, or we had to let them go because of attendance issues. And then you start finding out, well, why aren't people coming to work? Then it's this issue, that issue, and the other issue.
Yeah.
So it's the employment pathmaker's job to, one, help solve those issues, but really take the learnings from all that. And this is all confidential. So, but take the learnings from all of that and help us craft, what other trainings do we need as an organization? How can we support the supervisors and managing the teams, but also just each other? in terms of dealing with, conflict resolution and, de-escalating issues when they do flare up, because this is manufacturing, so they're going to happen anyway. But again, in this particular environment, we're intentionally trying to solve those issues. So that's a big distinction there, is to having that employment pathmaker be on site as well to support the staff.
So your core values, where do they come from?
Oh boy, it's from learning. I have a book here. You were impressed by Bernie. Instructions to the Cook is one of Bernie's books. It's actually the book that I read when I first started here, and I had the development strategy for our programs. It comes from just learning the history of Grayston. It comes from, and this was an exercise that president, CEOs, and boards before me were going through, just to figure out, what's in our DNA, what makes us tick, what makes us operate, and also just what do we want to be like, what is the type of environment we want to have here. The core values, it comes from all of those. And if you look at the model, non-judgment's number one on the list, in terms of, everybody has a story, so we don't want to adhere to what folks may have done in their past. It's about, how can I make you successful now and in the future? So, non-judgment's a big one. Compassion is another one, because again, understanding people's story and helping them through that. But it comes from the model itself, what it's all about, the philosophy behind the model. And there was feedback we got from prior gatherings with employees too, just in terms of what do they see as some of the things that says Grayston. And a lot of outside input too. When I would talk about Grayston, and I would ask folks who aren't here, who just know of us, I was like, well, what do you think of? Respect came to the top of the list. Empowerment came to the top of the list. And my favorite, transformation. I mean, ultimately, that's what we're trying to get to. So it's really just how do we want to operationalize ourselves, and what's the essence that we want to have in this organization? Because that's going to determine the type of people we want to keep here, bring in, and just how everyone sees us as well. So it's a mixture of things. I wish I could point to one issue, and I was actually pulling out old PowerPoints from like 2007 and prior board meetings where folks were trying to figure out the core values, and just kind of, we cobbled together, the 6 values that we wanted to make sure that we adhere to and push out, and changed our mission statement at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And were you directly involved in adapting or updating that mission statement?
No, intimately. As the president CEO, I have to drive it. So we actually had a whole virtual strategic planning offsite where we talked about with the board and the board chairs. It was a subset of the board, but it's the board chairs, the committee chairs. We have a junior board, the under 40 crowd, who a member of that board participated, and the executive team participated. And we really talked about, does this mission statement say who we are? And are these the right core values for this organization? So it was all day discussion around that.
Imagine.
10-year vision, 3-year strategic plan, and how we're going to carry this out on an annual basis. It was truly, it was in depth, but it was something that needed to happen, and it really sets the tone for the next 10 years or so.
So what is it like for you as the president and CEO? Where do you see, most people in a business context don't see themselves particularly as creative, especially because so many people associate the word creative with artistic. But if you had 2 or 3 other words to replace the word creativity with, what would they be?
And now it's funny you said that, because when I thought of creativity, I would go, and I'm looking at your background, you've got like paintings and artwork in the background. Those are the things you think of. You think of music, you think of sculpting, and all of these different things. And I had said in the past, business leaders, I mean, we are problem solvers. So as a problem solver, that does involve some level of creativity, because you're talking about innovation, right? You're talking about analytics, you're talking about, storytelling, which that's about as creative as you can get, telling a story and having a story be compelling. That's what business leaders do every day. We're whether it's delivering a strategy, developing a commercial, creating a new product, changing an organization, which I've been going through. And let's not forget, we did have this thing called a pandemic in the past year. Everybody had to get creative and pivot, which is probably the other word that you had to do. So, if any time called for creativity, it was this past year.
And is there a particular source that you would characteristically draw from to do some problem solving or come up with new solutions?
Oh God, there's no one source. No. I like to keep, I obviously I have a kitchen cabinet of advisors, just, other CEOs or other people that I go to talk about things. I'm a part of a CEO group where we hash out each other's problems together. I'm on different boards where, I can talk to some of those members about some of the challenges that I'm having. You have your friends, your family, you go to, I read, pray. So from a faith standpoint, so I get a lot of different resources that I leverage literally daily in terms of either getting me through the day or helping me solve a problem or just trying to come up with another idea. I wish I had one source, but I don't think that's realistic.
Well, I don't know that that would even be such a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's good to have a multitude of counselors and resources. So
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
It strikes me how collaborative this your organization is and has to be. I mean,
Hmm.
if you were responsible solely for making any kind of change happen, it would be really, well, it would be a difficult role to say the least.
Well, then you said collaborative, and collaboration is another one of our core values. So we have to work together. We've got a for-profit bakery, we got a nonprofit foundation, we've got different issues and different people that bring perspectives to the table. It's like we have to collaborate to solve problems because no person has all the answers. And as a small organization, we clearly need to work together because hey, there was times even in this last year where I was the only one from the executive team at the foundation because we were going through a transition. So I was the president, CEO, the CFO, the person in charge of I had everybody reporting to me because I hadn't put my executive team in place yet. So that clearly I needed to collaborate. Clearly I needed to be a little flexible and somehow find some sanity to solve problems in the midst of a pandemic and changing an organization. So, but we made it through it. It's, that's where I did learn, the value of just strong, solid leaders. Because at that time, it was just me and our VP GM at the bakery on the executive team, which was once 7, and it's now 4 by design. But because of strong leadership and good leadership and teamwork and collaboration, we managed through a pandemic that we were operating throughout. Like we literally did not stop running.
How did you
From
do that? How did you manage that?
yeah, it's good leadership. It was a good team, and again, were there days where we were probably yelling and screaming? Were there days where there was a lot of anxiety, uncertainty, fear? Because we did that, especially March 15th, 16th of last year. No one knew social distancing and the mask, and no, and just how this thing was spreading around. We didn't know what would happen. Like, what happens if this thing takes out all of our staff? We can't supply to Ben and Jerry's or the Whole Foods. So what got us through was just good leadership and just stay in the course, just get the protocols in place to make sure we have a safe environment for our employees, speak to the employees, let them know what we're doing. A lot of folks didn't know why we were deemed essential, but we were, and
A
continue to,
chocolate.
and we continue to operate. And, I would say, thank God that we did run because at that time you had 20 million of your fellow citizens who didn't have a job.
Right.
And that doesn't all, that's not to appease people, but it is a way to show that we are pretty blessed. And this was a tailwind for us from a sales standpoint, but it was just staying the course and implementing the necessary measures for safety and just making sure people were protected and having folks work from home that needed to work from home because the job wasn't, necessary to be in the office. I mean, clearly you can't manufacture brownies at home. So everybody at the bakery was continuing to operate. But we did have some programs here that were deemed essential from the city. So it was just, how do we stagger time so that we don't have everybody in the office at the same time? And when we do come back in, what does the office look like when folks come back in? So it was planning, perseverance, patience, which I don't have, but I'm still learning. It was all of those things that got us through. And like I said, it was a good year, a great team, and because of that, it was a record year from a production standpoint.
That's really, you really deserve congratulations for that, because to
The
be able
team
to,
does, yeah.
well, I know you're being modest, and I know it's also true that you can't do anything like this without a team of good people, and yet you're at the helm. So to be able to see what the needs are and to be able to identify them clearly and then find out how to address them,
Absolutely.
that's not something you just can wake up knowing exactly what the answer will be.
Yeah, especially when you didn't have a playbook. I mean, we're literally writing this as again, creativity. We
Yeah.
literally came up with our own protocol for what the office would look like when people came back.
Yeah.
Obviously we were using Zoom and Teams and shutting down the conference rooms and stationing the dispensers for the disinfectants and all of that. I mean, it was just making sure masks were available, Lysol sprays,
Mhm.
just protocols for how we would have meetings. Like we couldn't gather the way we used to. So it was a different environment, but we had to do it. Even from a programming standpoint, we could have 30 folks in a training class. We couldn't do that anymore. So we had 10 or 12 in these partition desks that had the plastic encasings, and that's what you had to do. And you had to sacrifice a little bit.
Would you, what would you say would be the, what's the best way to ask this question? When things were really challenging, when you
Mhm.
didn't know how you were going to figure something out, and everybody was saying, I don't know. What do you do at that point?
Again, you have to definitely don't rely on yourself, because I mean, I was just as crazed as some of the employees were, and one, it didn't show it. So sometimes you have to demonstrate. I
Yeah.
compare myself to like a duck. It's like I might be moving along the water, but you don't want to see what's going on underneath. The feet paddling away. But relying on that kitchen cabinet of folks, you're like, well, what are you guys doing? Or here's what I'm going through today, and sometimes you just have to vent, which is just having somebody to vent to and just say like,
Wow.
wow, today was tough, or this person just went off and I don't know if they're coming back, or this person is crying, everybody's stressed out. I mean, you have to have somewhere where you can vet, some other folks
Mm.
outside of the organization that you
Yeah.
can talk to, just to kind of decompress and then come back to work. The old commercial, never let them see you sweat.
And yet that is what makes you human.
Yeah.
That being close to
Mm-hmm.
underwater and
Mm-hmm.
wondering how the heck you're going to get out of it.
Exactly. But again, never feeding. The one thing I never wanted to do was feed the anxiety
Mm.
or feed the fear. It's like but acknowledge it. So, I know we're all stressed out. I know this is a crazy time. Sometimes I did have the answers, and sometimes freely admitted I didn't. But, as a team, we're trying to figure it out as we go along. But
Yeah.
just know that we've got the best interest of this organization, first and foremost, and the employees at heart, and following the guidelines that were constantly being written as we went along. And we're just learning and being careful.
Boy. If we shifted gears a little bit, tell me
Mm-hmm.
about something that was really fun and surprising that just dovetailed into what you were doing that worked perfectly.
Fun and surprising. Uh, the other day, and it wasn't during, I guess it's still the pandemic, the other day, and this, I guess, being in this position, you get connected to other folks. And I guess at some point I can be more specific, but due to my connections, I got a call from a Hollywood star. And it was so weird talking to this person as if we had talked for like years. I mean, it was just, and I'm saying to myself, I'm talking to so and so, and calling me up on my phone, emailing me back and forth, and I'm just like, this probably wouldn't happen in a normal setting. But this person was very interested in Grayston and interested in what we're all about and wants to get involved. And hopefully one day, I don't know when this will air or when this person can actually say what they want to say, but it was just kind of cool. And I'm not a groupie type person, but I was just telling this person, like, my favorite movie was so and so.
Very nice.
But it was just, it was weird because, like I said, like this is just not normal. Like, just,
But that's part
knowing,
of the creative process, right?
yeah, but just knowing who this person was, and I started looking online. They got a house here and a house there, and they want to come see the bakery, want to come see what we do. And I was like, wow, it's bizarre, but it was just very cool to just have this person call and chat, just like, I mean, we were both chatting like we'd known each other. Because I think we were just both relaxed about it, and it wasn't tongue tied or anything like that. I was just like, yeah, come on down, and you'll get to see the bakery at some point. But that was fun though. It was just absolutely fun, and I can't wait to say who this person is at some point.
Oh, that'll be great. So, have you was that the first opportunity that you had for someone who was a celebrity to get interested in Grayston?
Since I've been the CEO,
Yeah.
yes, celebrity Hollywood, but we've had the U.S. Surgeon General come here right before the pandemic. It was actually the December before the pandemic. Wow. The U.S. Surgeon General and his team came. Jerome Adams came to Grayston because I say this guy would talk about Grayston like he worked here, and he tells a story of his brother who was justice involved, and because of organizations like Grayston, can provide support to his folks like his brother. He was just so enamored of the organization and what it did. I mean, I listened to a testimony he gave to, I think it was a Senate Finance Committee, and the guy was rattling off our own stats like I had given them to him. It was just great. And we met because I think it was a panel I did back in October before the pandemic that we were both on. And he came up to me actually and just said, great job you guys are doing. I would love to come see the bakery. And I was like, tell me when you want to come. And that December he came, and it was just great to introduce him to some of our bakers, the staff at the bakery, and he could see firsthand. We were in a report that he did right before leaving office that featured Grayston as something that contributes to community health, just providing the job and providing the support. So we were in that report, which was just awesome. So not a celebrity, but U.S. Surgeon General comes to your bakery.
Celebrity enough.
That's pretty. I'll take it. And he's just a good guy too. So it was great to have him here.
Oh, boy, where do you see Grayston going in the next 5 years? Can you share something about that?
Well, that was all part of our virtual strategic offsite planning. And those issues were what we were tackling now that we have a new executive team in place. We've added new board members. I'm new, so we're an organization in transition. But the 10-year vision is one to just be the champion of stakeholder capitalism. So getting businesses to focus on the financials. Like I said, that's critical. But we love capitalism, but we do believe that we have to think differently about how we operate within that system as business leaders. And it's called, you could call it stakeholder capitalism, conscious capitalism. I'm on that board as well. But it's like, how do we think differently about our business's role in the world or in our community? And I always say, I'm not trying to solve every social issue because that's not my organization's place. I mean, our focus is on one, the stakeholder capitalism piece, but two, it's on, being the leader, the champion, the innovator in that whole inclusive employment, workforce development space, obviously leading with our open hiring model, but also just thinking about hiring differently. Again, what are those populations that aren't working, that want to work, but need support or just need the opportunity presented to them? How can we make that happen for them? And we want to be, when people think inclusive employment, inclusive economy, inclusive hiring, Grayston should be the first thing that comes to mind. Or when they think conscious capitalism or stakeholder capitalism, Grayston should come to mind. I know we may not have a forward-facing product like a Patagonia or Allbirds or Ben & Jerry's ice cream, a great ingredient, but we have a story, we have a model that we know is very compelling, that folks should consider and think about as we look at other members of the community that need the support that we think we can provide. The third, I would say, is having this economic impact on the folks with barriers. And we've quantified there's about 10 million, researchers told us 10 million folks across the country that have some type of barrier to employment. So one or more, again, homeless, justice involved, substance abuse, 10 million people who aren't working, who want to work. And a good portion of that group are opportunity youth. So that 16 to 24, 18 to 24 crowd that have some barrier, but that can't find employment. So these are the folks that aren't showing up, by the way, in the unemployment numbers. These are the folks that are contributing to the lowest labor participation rate since the Carter years, Jimmy Carter. So, how do we unlock that potential? And, we were just doing some crunching some numbers, and we said, if we could just impact less than 1% of that 10 million, so 40,000 jobs, unlocks about $3 billion of economic impact.
Wow.
So if we could just be more conscious about how we operate in this capitalism framework, think differently about inclusive hiring and inclusive employment and just the inclusive economy in general, by providing jobs to just a small slither of that group, think of the economic impact that we could provide. So the opportunity is huge. Do I think every single member of that 10 million group is going to work? No. But if you can provide opportunity to those folks, think of the savings from public assistance, diversion from the justice system, and just the income that's generated.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
I love the idea of having business be a force for good, because yes, you've got to have the economic impact, but then when you think about the moral and ethical implications, of course it's got to work. You've got to be able to make money from it. And yet, as you're saying, that's not the only determining factor. I mean, you're essentially talking about human beings.
Yes.
And raising consciousness. And if there was ever a creative act, that would be it.
Yeah, and there's this whole, the people attribute to a demographic, but I do think there's a psychographic emerging where folks are looking for more purpose, whether it's the employee that wants to work in a company where they feel that it's more than just the job. People that want to buy a product where I'm not just buying a brownie or a pair of shoes or a jacket, but I am contributing in some way to maybe getting somebody else a job or making the environment better, or, offering these opportunities to folks who, would have been denied an opportunity in, a traditional framework. Everybody's looking for that. I won't say everybody, but there's a good portion that are looking for that. And I think that's emerging now. I think people are, and look, the whole year taught, at least me, folks are looking for trust, hope, and some connection and belonging. I mean, connection is probably the biggest one. I mean, we're all talking to, we're talking to each other on Zoom. Probably in a normal environment, we would have been sitting across the table from you talking.
Eating brownies.
Eating brownies. You better be eating brownies. But that's what folks are looking for. So as a business, it's just, and I say this, it's a smart business talent management strategy. I mean, you can make it sound kumbaya and talk about the social and the moral and ethical, but it's just good business. It's just a good practice to have as a business. And P.S., you get to have an impact on the world.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that especially the combination of the pandemic, where people had the opportunity to step back and say, well, wait a minute, what am I really doing with my life and my time, and what's important to me now, as well as a younger generation saying, hey, wait a minute, look what's happening to the world. something's got to be done. So it seems to me that those, and not only those two exclusively, but those two influences are coming together in a way now where people are asking more about, well, what are the consequences of this business, environmentally, socially,
Absolutely.
and that's long overdue.
Mm-hmm. And it look, and particularly from a conscious capitalism standpoint, I mean, we want to provide the framework for how businesses can think through these problems. I mean, there's a lot of discussion now. Is this, political, or I don't know how any business can not be political, since a lot of these businesses have lobbying firms and government relations. So it's not so much about not being political, but not being partisan. I could understand
Good
that
point.
piece.
Yeah.
But it's, finding your role. I mean, our place, and look, we were in a lot of things over the years: housing, childcare. We've slowly divested from those endeavors and focused solely on employment and workforce development. That's where we're going to play in that space. And I'll talk to Bernie Sanders and Mitch McConnell. If you're on board with my vision and mission of Grayston, we're on board with you on that particular issue. And that's how we'll play in the space. And again, it's not being political or not being partisan, but it is being committed to our mission and our vision, which is about making sure we get folks jobs and providing dignity through work. And then that's going to be a debate I think that folks are going to have for a long time. So, and again, it's not about solving every issue. I can't solve every issue. This organization can't solve every issue, but our down payment on it will be through employment.
Yeah. It reminds me of that story, which I hope I don't butcher too much, of a man who comes across a woman along the shore of the beach, and she's picking up starfish and throwing them back one at a time into the water. And he comes up and says, "Well, it's not going to make a difference." And as she's picking one up, she says, "Well, to this one it will."
Well, that's true. And again, if you take that 10 million figure again, like, we can hire 70 folks through open hiring at the bakery. The body shop, which is one of our partners that we've been working with on open hiring, they're hiring people through open hiring at their distribution centers and their retail operations in the US and Canada.
Oh, talk more about that.
Yeah. So they started. They initiated their pilot back in 2019, Q4, I think it was, around that time, where they introduced open hiring as a pilot in the distribution center in Raleigh, North Carolina. About
Oh, wow.
300 opportunities that were given, I believe. And they found that through that initiative, they cut their turnover rate by almost 2/3. Productivity, units per hour, as measured, went up about 13%. And the feedback they got from the employees, both the ones came through open hiring and the folks of the body shop, they were like, all right, it's time to take this and roll it out to our retail operations in the stores. So Q4 of last year, they did that and introduced open hiring in their retail operations in the US and Canada, and hiring people, half of whom weren't working in the past year, half of whom had some one or more barriers to employment. And then you read the qualitative stories of folks saying, you know what, I have a strong work ethic. I want to work. I don't know how to interview. I don't know how to put together a resume, but thank God you had this. They call it inclusive hiring. They didn't call it open hiring, but thank God you had this program that brought me in, and now I can prove myself. How can you put a price tag on that?
Oh, I know.
So it's
Gets to your heart here.
yeah. So it's just, our other friends in Vermont, Rhino Foods, Rhino, they make the cookie dough that goes into the half baked pint of ice cream there. They're doing open hiring, and we got 4 other partners in Rochester, New York, California, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 1,200 opportunities between all of these different companies that are being provided. And again, let's get to 40,000 so that we can just unlock that potential. We just want to see more of that. And our goal is to really create regional hubs here in New York State, right here in our own backyard in Westchester County, New York, so we can have other companies providing a open hiring employment ecosystem, so that when one of our bakers or one of the folks that goes through our workforce training programs, needs a job, there we've got this whole system of folks
Whole
ready
network.
to take them on. And let's just create all these little hubs across this country and test the model. I don't even know if I would say test anymore, because we know the model works. It's been working for 40 years for us, but to have it be in other industries, the body shop, I mean, the largest in terms of the practitioners, but Body Shop is doing it. They're a beauty care company.
Mm-hmm.
We have a custodial services company in Rochester, Giant Eagle, which is a grocery store chain,
Yeah.
Arbonne, which is like a consumer products company.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all these different environments, contexts, practicing open hiring. We want to see more of that. And again, it's about getting the opportunities to other folks.
What is it like? So this would be with open hiring, that's a percentage of the workers in an organization. So it's not the whole organization, obviously. So I'm curious about what it's like for people who've been hired without those barriers, and what it's like for them to experience the transformation that happens for people who do come
Yeah.
to the open hiring program.
Yeah, I do make the joke because for both of my jobs, actually, I think I was probably interviewed by like 9 different people. And I was like, this is so ironic. Here I am going through all these hoops in an open hiring organization. So I think for us, you know what you're getting into. I think there's no secret about who we are or how we hire. So again, that's psychographic again. You want to work for an organization that, oh wow, this is what you're doing. This is how you're going to hire people. These are the opportunities that you give them. This is how you support them. Like, wow, this is a great organization. But again, it is with its challenges like anything else. And, there are some stressful moments, and there's some where we may have misunderstandings because your way of using language, even though we might be using the same words, is totally different from mine, or just your background is just totally different from mine. So we have to learn how to communicate with one another. But then again, that's where the core values comes in: the respect, compassion, understanding,
Yeah.
collaborating has to come into play. That's going to happen. And that's why I say I don't think we can ever be perfect, because we're always going to be human, and we're always going to be different. And those differences are going to kind of create some issues. But folks know coming in that this is what it's about. And now that we've rolled out the core values, those will be reinforced, or rolling out the core values, they will be reinforced. And that's the kind of organization we want to have. But yeah, there's no secret about who we are or how we hire or what we want this organization to be about.
Well, I would think that because it's no secret, you would be attracting those people that we were just talking about.
Exactly.
We want to see a different world, a better world that's more inclusive, that has more opportunity, that isn't based on an outmoded workforce and workforce ethic. It's just it's so needed for this time that we live in, where the change is so unpredictable.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because during our discussions at our strategic offsite, that was one of the things we were talking about. It's, yes, this is the kind of environment we want. This is the essence of Grayston. But at the end of the day, it's also about, all right, who do we want working here? Like, what are the types of characteristics that we want to have within an organization? Again, that's where the core values really come into play. And one of the first questions I'll even ask folks, when they interview, I want them to tell me about the mission and see how they personalize it for themselves. Do they understand it? I do not like it. So if people are interviewing, I do not like it when they just say like, "Oh, I love your mission." It's like, okay, we love the mission too, but tell me how. What does it mean to you, like, on a personal level, or like, why do you like it? Does it scare you? Like, do you think it? Do you buy into it? Because and that's who we are. And if you're not 100% on board with it, again, we don't judge folks on the way in, and we won't judge you on the way out. You might be better suited for another organization. That's okay.
Yeah.
Just can't work here.
Wouldn't like it.
You wouldn't. It wouldn't be a fit. It wouldn't be a fit.
Yeah.
And that's, again, it's okay. There are other organizations that I am sure, and that's what Bernie believed. It's everybody has something to contribute. You just got to figure out where that place is for you.
Boy. I'm so glad we're having this conversation because the more people know about these kinds of possibilities, the more they can see how it's possible with a little work to get it
Yes,
into wherever they are.
absolutely,
Even if
absolutely,
it's not exactly the same model, it's the same values. It's the same
exactly.
interest in making business something that works for everybody, not just the shareholders.
Exactly. That's part of the whole inclusive economy
Mhm.
framework.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to share with us about what you love about what you're doing, what you see as the next thing on the horizon for Grayston?
I love telling the story of Greyston. I mean, you can see it's not my story. I didn't make it up. I mean, this was all I give all the credit to Bernie and the team for the work that's done. But it's just an amazing story. It's inspiring, and I just love talking about it. And again, it's a way for business to just be this force for good. It's a way for business to attempt to solve some of these problems in conjunction with community-based organizations, government partners, other businesses, and just people on the ground. We just want to make sure we can bring more folks along for the journey, because a lot of folks don't know who Greyston is, even right here in Yonkers or Westchester County. They don't know who we are. But the work that we're doing, all this replication work with the Body Shop, Giant Eagle, and Rhino, a lot of folks don't know that this is all being done through our nonprofit. So we want to continue this work and see this work be supported through private philanthropy, whether it's foundations or individuals. It's important work, as we've already talked about, with
Yeah.
enormous potential. Again, just 40,000 opportunities equals 3 billion of impact, at least 3 billion of impact. So we want to continue that work. For this year and beyond. So, but that requires resources, and we want to make sure that we have folks that can contribute and join us for the ride.
And if people were interested in finding out more about Grayston and how they could put something similar into place for their company, their organization, where would they go?
Go to grayston.org. And I always tell people you can buy, donate, or replicate. You can you can buy the brownies online. And if you're a frozen dessert company, we can certainly have a conversation about being an inclusion. But if you just want to donate, that's an opportunity for you to do that on the website as well. And if you want to replicate, and even if you only had a 5-person shop, and what, make your front desk person the open hire position. That's one job towards our 40,000. So, buy, donate, replicate, or just do all three. I like that one better.
I like that one too.
But just go to grayston.org, and that's the first step. And you can reach out to us there.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for being on this call with me today. I so really appreciate what you're doing and that you have the vision and the ability to carry forward this incredible opportunity for our society and for the world.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed the conversation. Sure, we could have talked longer.
I'm sure we could. Maybe
Yeah.
that'll be the next conversation.
There we go. Part 2.
Right. Thanks again. And thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
everyone who has been watching or listening. We appreciate your being with us and stay tuned for the next episode. Bye for now.